Well, good evening, everybody. Before we begin, I'll ask everyone to please silence cell phones and other electronic devices and remind council that our procedure bylaw prescribes the use of electronics during council meetings. It is 6:30 p.m. I'll call this council planning meeting to order, and we'll begin with a territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are meeting today on the traditional territory of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, now of Alderville, who have lived on and cared for this land for generations. We recognize their enduring connection to this land, water, and community, and we pay respect to their elders, both past and present. As we come together to make important decisions for our council and our community, let us be mindful of our responsibility to uphold the values of justice, respect, and inclusivity for all the people who call this traditional territory home. And with the approval of the agenda, the motion is moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that Council approve the September 8th, 2025 planning meeting agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion's carried. I will note that both Councillors Wright and Rowley have sent regrets for this evening's meeting. Members of Council, have you any declarations of pecuniary interest? And if so, please state the general nature thereof. And there are none noted. We have no delegations this evening. There's no statutory public meeting this evening, which brings us straight into planning and development reports. The first report is with regard to site plan control approval. Manager Warren, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Yes, I will simply say that we tried to provide some illustrations around the community so that maybe it's a little bit easier to identify where specific projects are in the community that are under construction, as well as the ones that are just sort of seen in terms of site plan and people know about. We tried to make it a little bit more community friendly and oriented. That's about all.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. I have a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that Council receives the staff report for purposes of information as an update regarding a summary of recent site plan approvals in the municipality. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Being none opposed, that motion is carried. Yes, indeed. Thank you for keeping us informed of those issues. I know you're required to do so, but it's still good to see that information. The next is the Northumberland Intermunicipal Taskforce on Housing and Homelessness. Again, Manager Warren, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through the mayor, I will simply say I look forward to being hopefully being the municipal participant in the next stage of the homelessness and housing. Yeah, what would be the term at the end there?
Task force.
Task force. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor McCausland, that Council receives the staff report for purposes of information in response to the recommendations of the report from the Northumberland Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Manager Warren, for being there in the first place. I do want to say that I'm very excited to see this on paper, but even as we were at the event and as we were writing the report from the task force, I was struck by how many of the items are things that we're already doing in Brighton. And so I love how much of this report says, yeah, we're going to keep doing this thing that we already started doing. That's fantastic. I also want to note that some of the things in this some of the recommendations in this report are not necessarily for staff. Some of them are recommendations to council in terms of what we are willing to fund. And so we need to keep these recommendations top of mind as we do our business on this side as well, because staff are great at policies and processes, but when it comes down to it, we give them direction. And so we need to be able to embrace these changes as well. And some of these are kind of, I won't say marching orders, but certainly strong recommendations for us. And I want to keep that top of mind. This is excellent. Well done. Excited for the next steps.
Thank you for that. Anyone else? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And the next report is the passing of a bylaw to adopt OPA number 18. Director Walsh, we've read this report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Nothing further, Mayor?
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon. The council received the staff report dated September 8th, 2025 regarding adoption of official plan amendment number 18 pertaining to the community engagement and complete application policies for Planning Act applications. And that council passed the bylaw presented in this agenda to formally adopt a final official plan amendment number 18. And the council directs staff to forward the adopted OPA number 18 to the County of Northumberland for final approval. And that council directs staff to establish clear standards for the matters of sun shadow effects, landscaping, and urban design. And that council directs staff to interimly administer OPA number 18 with respect to public engagement procedures and other matters not related to complete application requirements, pending final approval of the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And that staff be directed to expeditiously undertake pre-consultation with development proponents through meetings of the Municipal Development Review Team, who are guided to meet every 2 weeks as necessary. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. The section of the report on Bill 17 notes 4 things that we are no longer allowed to require in a complete application, being sun shadow, wind, urban design, and lighting. And the excellent suggestion that we just instead establish clear standards for these things mentions sun shadow, landscaping, and urban design. Do we have already, just for the record, do we already have clear standards for lighting?
Director Walsh.
Through the mayor, no. Sometimes referred to as illumination studies or plans. It can be fairly straightforward, just as luminaires, the measurement at the property line from a commercial development. That's usually a very straightforward standard. Usually we ask for plans so that we can see that the lighting is actually working for that entranceway and other points of particular safety concern. But I think in practical terms that it can be translated or a detailed plan report. But it's just, at the end of the day, it's all about good communications between the municipality and the applicant.
Thank you for that. Follow up?
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent point. I only thought of it because we've had questions of lighting and impacts of lighting on nearby flora and fauna, et cetera, in the past, as a sticking point that didn't translate into anything. So it is top of mind for me.
Thank you for that. Director Walsh.
Through the mayor, I think I know the instance that you're referring to, and ultimately I think it translated into a draft condition that illumination should be at grade or a single story level only and not above grade, and that it be directed downward and not, so there was a little more aggressive standards there, keeping it away from the other property limits.
Thank you both. Anything else from members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Next report is proposed revised policies, additional residential units for the municipality of Brighton. Planner Britnell, we've read your report. Do you have anything to add or highlight?
Through the mayor, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council receives the staff report dated September 8th, 2025 regarding policies related to the development of additional residential units in the municipality. And that council directs staff to engage with the following municipal committees: the Rural Advisory Committee, the Heritage Committee, and Accessibility Committee, in order to better understand existing legislative requirements regarding the development of additional residential units by producing a discussion paper. And that staff initiate public consultation based on a discussion paper to be drafted reflective of details within this report. And that staff report back to council with the draft official plan amendment on additional residential units and draft zoning bylaw amendment in conjunction with a 60-day public consultation on the municipality's website in order to amend zoning bylaw number 105, 2021 at a future meeting. It will be reviewed following best municipal practices with regard to existing policies. Is there any discussion? Councillor Wheeldon.
Thank you, Mayor. Once again, just want to praise staff for what is an excellent report and an excellent initiative. Very excited to see us to going further with additional residential units. And in case folks don't know what an ARU or an additional residential unit is, it's the way that we get to grow our population without having to lose all of our fields and forests. By having rental properties on your own property or things like that. There is funding available, as noted in this report. If you want to have build a basement suite or even a tiny home in your backyard, there are ways of doing that with funding from the county. So please do reach out to planning staff if anyone wants additional residential units. They're sorely needed.
Thank you for that. And by way of information, there has been discussion at County Council that the amount of money available for each residential unit is lackluster at best, and we need to bump that up. So that discussion continues, even though we also wring our hands about the property taxes and the increased property taxes. Any further discussion for members of council? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next report is with regard to the assumption for public use of roads and related above and below ground services and utilities, Rosslyn Estates Subdivision Phase 2. Manager Gooding is not here. Director Linnon, we've read Mr. Gooding's report. Do you have anything to add or highlight? We can, look, you're about to have 7.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I did read the report and nothing further to add.
Thank you, Director. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell. The council received the staff report regarding the assumption for public use of roads and all related above and below ground services and utilities for Rosslyn Estates Subdivision Phase 2B. And further, that council enacts a bylaw to assume for public use all related above and below ground services and utilities identified in Registered Plan 39M 933 being Phase 2B of Rosslyn Estates Subdivision in accordance with the letter from the municipal solicitor dated July 17th, 2025. And further, that the current securities held in accordance with the Rosslyn Estates Phase 2B subdivision agreement be released. And further, that if required prior to the mayor's signature, the municipal solicitor and the director of planning and development be authorized to make minor revisions to the assumption bylaw as may be necessary to address refinement of attached schedules or to reflect legal descriptions, block numbers, etc. And further, that the municipal solicitor be directed to register the assumption bylaw at the Northumberland County Registry Office and have the authority to revise the bylaw so far as necessary for the purposes of registration. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to items for information purposes. This is bylaw investigations, March to July 2025. Director Walsh, do you have anything to add or highlight with regard to this report?
Nothing further, Mayor. It's just there to report to council on some of the activities of bylaw enforcement without making specific reference to actual locations and other personal information, but just to give a characterization of the nature of the enforcements being undertaken.
I think it's helpful information for council to see what's going on in the community, so appreciate that. I have a motion moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council receive the list of bylaw investigations for a period of March to July 2025 as information. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Brings us to bylaws. The first bylaw is with regard to OPA number 18. It's moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to adopt amendment to the official plan number 18 of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton for purposes of establishing community engagement and complete application policies. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. The next bylaw is with regard to the assumption of roads, etc., Phase 2B Rosslyn Estates is moved by Councillor Wheeldon, seconded by Councillor Butwell, that council gives the bylaws for second and third reading and finally passes on this date. Being a bylaw to assume for public use all related above and below ground services and utilities installed on registered plan 39M 933 being Phase 2B of the Rosslyn Estates subdivision. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. That brings us to question period. Is there anyone in the gallery that may have a question with anything that appeared on tonight's agenda? And there's no one on Zoom for that purpose. Thank you. We have no closed session this evening, which brings us to our confirmatory bylaw moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Deputy Mayor Anderson, that council gives a bylaw its first, second, and third reading and finally passed on this date. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the Municipality of Brighton planning meeting held on September 8th, 2025. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. And a motion moved by Councillor McCausland, seconded by Councillor Wheeldon, that the September 8th, 2025 council planning meeting adjourn at 6:46 p.m. Is there any discussion? All in favor? There being none opposed, that motion is carried. Leaving here tonight, let us continue to serve our community as we stand united, strong and free, and may God